Do you ever feel out of place, like somehow you just don't belong and no one understands you? Simple Plan does. I'm Ruby Carr, and this is the story of Simple Plan's Welcome to My Life.
You know the songs.
Just making people feel something.
It's been a pleasure to work on this song with her.
But do you know the history?
It's a struggle making any kind of record.
I don't always have the direction or concept.
This is Encore, an in-depth look at the stories behind the music. Here's iHeartRadio's Ruby Carr.
Is it just me, or after blowing up in the early 2000s, is pop punk finally getting some respect? It was definitely looked down upon by the indie kids of the 2010s, and only now, with the power of TikTok, are we reaching that critical point of millennial nostalgia meets Gen Z taste-making that makes it cool again. I thought it was cool all along, although the pictures of me with chunky highlights and a spiked belt might say otherwise. Personally, I like to think that the excellent Olivia Rodrigo is partially to thank for helping turn the tide with her 2021 homage to Paramore's Misery Business, the rebellious and angsty Good For You. Festivals like the returning All Your Friends Festival, taking place next week at the time of recording in Burroughs Creek, Ontario, are proof that there's still a place for swoopy hair, loosened neckties, and t-shirts over top of long sleeves for you and all your friends. With a nostalgic lineup that'll feature the likes of Avril Lavigne, Under Oath, Faber Drive, Moneen, and of course, the band that welcomed us to their lives, Simple Plan. Formed when they were just 13 years old by lead vocalist and guitarist Pierre Bouvier and drummer Chuck Comeau in 1993, it's hard to believe that just 8 short years later, Simple Plan would be signed by major label Atlantic Records in late 2001. And by early 2002, their first single, the aptly named I'm Just a Kid, would make huge waves on both Canadian and American radio, fitting in perfectly with the sound of the holy trinity of pop punk, Blink-182, Sum 41, and Good Charlotte. In a bit of rarity for the time, I'm Just a Kid was featured on the soundtrack and in the movie The New Guy, starring DJ Qualls, Zooey Deschanel, and Eliza Dushku. Do you remember that one? The film was absolutely panned by critics, but was a summer success story at the box office as teens like me flocked to see the gross-out comedy flick. But to be honest, a lot of that probably has to do with Simple Plan's video for I'm Just a Kid. Essentially a marketing video for the film, and it worked because I just watched it and it made me want to watch the movie. The I'm Just a Kid video starred DJ Qualls and Eliza Dushku in a high school setting as he tries to impress her with his skateboard stunts. Just an FYI, that was legitimately the single most impressive way to get girls back in 2002. I think it's what the kids call Riz. The members of Simple Plan play more popular kids that end up trying and failing painfully to impress Dushku, as DJ Qualls ultimately walks off with her by making the bold move of simply going up and talking to her. Maybe that's Riz? Sorry, I'm getting off track here. Anyway, after the success and exposure of I'm Just a Kid, Simple Plan was in a pole position to become Canada's new pop-punk sweethearts. Follow-up single I'd Do Anything from their album No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls was another hit and even featured a hallowed co-sign from Blink-182's Mark Hoppus in the form of backup vocals. While Blink-182 was already well established by this point as a group of certifiable rock stars, and Sum 41 were cutting their teeth with slightly more edgy, aggressive, and mosh-worthy music. I actually got punched in the neck in a mosh pit at a Sum 41 show, but that's a story for another day. Our boys from Quebec in Simple Plan, still on the come-up, were creating more relatable, earnest hits. As their popularity soared, Simple Plan continued to pay their dues by opening up for the likes of Sugar Ray, Blink-182, Green Day, and Avril Lavigne, a friendship that will be revisited at the aforementioned All Your Friends Fest, and even played back-to-back years at the original punk mega festival, Warped Tour. As with many bands that we've discussed here on Encore, blowing up quickly is often a gift and a curse for young artists. By late 2003, there was an appetite for more Simple Plan in every conceivable way, which was a good thing, of course, but not without its pitfalls. The aforementioned tour and festival slots kept the boys busy and grew the fan base massively, but the fans and the label wanted more music. Green Day had just released their seminal work, American Idiot, as did Blink-182 and their self-titled effort, while Avril Lavigne was back in the studio after the massive success of her album Let Go. What this all meant is that Simple Plan had just a few short months after coming off tour to write new songs for album number 2. Pop punk was evolving, you see. The band's stock was high, and it was a case of staying relevant or risk being left behind. I had the distinct pleasure of sitting down for a chat with Simple Plan's drummer and album co-writer Chuck Comeau to look back on the process of putting together what would eventually become Still Not Getting Any, and we discussed the pressure the band was under at the time.
You know, there was so much happening. We had like 3 different singles that did amazing, or actually 4, and we just toured, and then it was almost 2.5 years since the release of the first record. And then we're like, okay, well, now we have to follow it up. And the record label was like putting a lot of pressure, like, we need to put it out now. And it was like, okay, we just finished 2.5 years of nonstop touring. And we just went to Vancouver because Pierre at the time lived there. And we got a hotel room, and every single day around 10 or 11 a.m. he would show up, and we would just work all day, and we knew we had this little bit of a gun on our heads and this deadline that we're trying to meet. So we wrote in the fall a little bit, and then pretty much from like, I think 3 months is a little exaggerated, maybe like another 5-6 months, but it was a lot. I mean, we took like 2-3 years to write our first record, and we had to make this one in months. And we started recording. We were not even done writing. We started recording like the 4 songs that we felt were going to be like music videos and singles. And then as we were recording those, we were writing the rest of the record in the studio, Pierre and I. So it was intense.
With the key songs hastily written, as Chuck explained, it was now time to record and produce the album, even while writing sessions continued. Not ideal, but the band persevered. Simple Plan was adamant that they wanted to continue to evolve with the prevailing sounds of the time, adding a bit more edge to their music while maintaining the mass appeal that they so clearly had in spades. Chuck would explain.
We came off, like us coming off of this first record doing so well. There was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of confidence that, you know, like, what we believed in, the kind of band that we wanted to be, was working, and people were connecting with that music. So I think there was lots of momentum, and that was exciting. And there was a lot of fear as well. And, you know, you never know if it's going to keep going, right? Like, you always hope for, but a lot of bands are one hit or one album wonder. And we didn't want to be that. So I think we had a chip on our shoulder. We wanted to prove something with the second record, and yeah, it turned out really great.
In other words, it was time to grow up from pop punk to punk rock. Bob rock, that is. Longtime listeners of Encore will know exactly who Bob Rock is. But as a mini reminder, Bob Rock is the man who painstakingly produced the hell out of Metallica's mainstream breakthrough Metallica the Black Album to create a modern metal sound that proved to a wider pop and rock-loving audience that Metallica could be more than just a thrashing wall of noise and aggressive lyrics. Our retrospective last season on their influential ballad Nothing Else Matters is one of our most in-depth, and a lot of its subject matter covers just how important Bob Rock was. He had actually just come off producing and temporarily joining Metallica for their infamous Saint Anger project before hooking up with Simple Plan, who were looking for the Black Album experience, but with Simple Plan songs. Rock had a bit of a reputation in the industry of, well, being a hard ass. Metallica in particular are well documented in saying that he would make them record over and over and over for every last instrument, every last sound, and they vowed to never work with him again post-Black Album, which they quickly did a U-turn on and worked with him many more times. So as Comeau would tell me, the boys were nervous to work with such a polarizing figure, but they knew the juice would be worth the squeeze.
The process was really fun. To the actual recording, usually it's kind of tedious, and this one we did it with Bob Rock, an amazing producer. He made like the Black Album from Metallica, and he was one of those like legends of recording, and it was so much fun. We were really scared because we had heard that he changed everything and he was really tough on bands in the studio, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. And he said, look, I'm tough when I need to be. I change things when I need to be, but your songs, you guys have worked really hard. Like, we demoed everything. Everything was planned. Everything was like ready. It wasn't just showing up with like an acoustic, everything was arranged. And we put a lot of effort and thought into it. And he's like, I don't need to change anything. I love it. Let's just record it. And he helped us. He gave us some advice, of course, but it just felt like a really fun environment. And he was really great in the studio. And he gave us a lot of confidence. He just believed in our songs and our band. And he made it sound the way that we envisioned in our heads. We wanted to make like a big arena rock kind of record. We wanted to make like because our first record, we didn't love the production, the sound. We wanted this one to sound bigger and, just more powerful. And he really did that. He just nailed it. And it was amazing.
Yes. So let the record show that Encore's official position is now Bob Rock, producer of albums and total sweetheart. As the old saying goes, there's no diamonds without pressure, and although the stakes were high, Simple Plan benefited not only from Rock's stewardship, but a real confidence in who they were and what they wanted the album to be.
We didn't want to completely reinvent the band. We just wanted to keep in the logical direction that taking the next step would take us, And so when I look back, that record has a lot of all the sides of Simple Plan that we love and that our fans love. There's always a bit of pressure as a band to it's a very tight rope to walk, because you kind of you have to evolve, and there's a pressure to feel like, okay, we can't make the exact same record, but at the same time, you don't want to make something that's completely unexpected or that people are like, oh, that's not them. So it's finding that balance between trying to innovate, but at the same time trying to stay true to what you loved about your band when you first started and what people loved about your band when they discovered you. So it's like that tension between evolving, but at the same time staying true to your sound. So I think on that one, we were able to really found that balance. And I love it for that reason. It sounds like us, but it also doesn't sound like a copy of the first record. It was like a cool evolution.
It was a cool evolution, still deeply rooted in the pop-punk sound that defined a generation and brought Simple Plan to the dance. There were clear influences from bands like 311, Van Halen, Nirvana, Metallica, with an album track cheekily titled One as an homage to the metal legends on Still Not Getting Any. But perhaps one of the biggest gambles Comeau, Pierre, and the boys made was the last-minute inclusion of the heart-wrenching ballad simply called Untitled.
There's a ballad like Untitled that's, a side of our band that we discovered when we did Perfect on the first record. It wasn't really in our wheelhouse. And then we realized that, wow, we can actually write songs that people really connect with on an emotional level. And we realized that, hey, this is a new side of the band that we can tap into, and that we're good at, that we can make songs that people make them feel something.
Before Untitled was even finished, Simple Plan announced the release of Still Not Getting Any to MTV in August 2004. Comeau noted to me that they actually had to call the track that because the album art and booklets needed to be submitted for printing, and the song quite literally didn't have a title.
We were mixing the songs, and we still had the song that we didn't know if the lyrics were going to stay or not, so we call it Untitled because we didn't know if the title was going to change or not. And we had to print the album covers because back then it was CDs. So we were like, oh, let's be artistic. Let's call it Untitled, just in case the lyrics change. So we don't have weird random lyrics that are not there anymore.
Finally, though, the record was complete, and by September, a first single would be announced. The band had a clear favorite as to what should be their sophomore reintroduction. But there was one teensy little problem. The label? They didn't agree. Yes, as Chuck Comeau revealed to me just a few days ago, from the moment it was conceived, he and Pierre felt as if they'd struck gold with Welcome to My Life.
Well, I mean, I remember vividly writing it. We were like in a hotel room like this. We were staying in Vancouver at I think it was the Westin on Robson Street. And we sat down and I had this idea, this line. That's usually how we start songs. Pierre and I is like, I'll come up with a hook or like a title or a line in a song, like, and usually it's the main line of the song. So I was like, welcome to my life. I had heard people think like, like in conversation, like, oh yeah, welcome to my life. And I was like, oh man, that could be a song. Like, that sounds iconic. That sounds like something big. And then I kind of came up with the idea of like, not as a joke, but more like heartfelt and genuine feelings, So I brought that up and to Pierre, and he was messing around, and then he started singing it, and he sang it in a way that was like, oh, wow, that's magic. Like, that's it. That's how we have to do it. You found it. Like, it took a life of its own when he sang it, because when it's just word on paper, it's just words and it's a cool idea. But once you hear with the chords, with the melody, with him singing it with his voice, it became a Simple Plan song right away. And we started writing it, and we just had that hunch, like, we're onto something. We got something special. We captured something special, and we wrote it. And I remember we took we burned it on a CD, and he had a little Jetta, and we drove around Vancouver for like 3 hours, just playing the song over and over again, going like, all right, I think we're going to be okay. Like, I think we're going to have a career. Like, it's not going to end with this first record. We just had this kind of peaceful excitement at the same time, but like this kind of like zen of like, hey, like, we can still do this.
Honestly, the sense of euphoria must have been amazing, feeling like your life's mission was finally on track as a musician. I wish I could have been in that Jetta, just driving around on top of the world. What a dream. I am, however, less envious of what happened next. After months of frantic work to avoid the second album slump, Simple Plan would bring their sure thing of a lead single to the label. And And
then we played it for the rest of the band and our manager and our label, and the reaction was a little bit like, okay.
Really?
Yeah, we like it. Yeah, and then we were so like shocked and kind of bummed. We were like, are you serious? Like, and then when we ended up recording it, we raised it up just a little bit, so it's a bit higher, so in his voice register. And then people are like, oh yeah, now it's fine, it's awesome. And I'm like, okay. So we just, as soon as we recorded it, we heard it back. As soon as Bob put his his whole production touches on it, it just felt like we had something special. And in the studio, same thing, we would blast it, and I think we mixed it in Vancouver, and when we heard it, we were like, okay, this has to be the first single.
Even after making some necessary adjustments and being blessed with the production stylings of one Bob Rock, the label still wasn't getting it, pushing harder for album opener Shut Up to be single numero uno.
The label fought us really hard. They wanted Shut Up to be the first single, and we're like, to the point where the president was like, I'll jump off a building if it's not Shut Up.
Okay, unnamed label president, dramatic much? After talking their label bosses off the proverbial rooftop, Welcome to My Life was officially released to radio on September 13th, 2004. Fun fact, this wasn't the first song Simple Plan released in the year 2004. Technically, their first charting song of the year was March 2004's Don't Wanna Think About You, a better than you might expect song from the Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed soundtrack, naturally. A seminal teen angst anthem, Welcome to My Life was instantly relatable to kids all over the world in a way that the band couldn't have dreamed of. If I'm Just a Kid was a reactive and naive look into the psyche of an anxiety-ridden generation of young millennials, Welcome to My Life was its wiser, proactive older sibling declaratively screaming, you might think I'm happy, but I'm not gonna be okay. Simple Plan were making it okay to really own your feelings. Like Miss Rachel says, it's okay to have big feelings. And fans fiercely latched onto the track, vindicating the band's choice to stand up for its release.
We just felt like this is our hunch, like we have this gut feeling, and sometimes in life you really gotta follow your gut instinct, and you gotta if you feel it in your gut and you really believe in it, and it's, you kind of know it in your heart of hearts, like, this is something you should do. You just have to fight for it and believe in it, and we just had that feeling. It just felt like the ultimate Simple Plan song. And sure enough, this is one of our most streamed songs still today. This is the one that really elevated the band globally. Like, it blew up everywhere around the world. And it's still one of our biggest songs when we play live, So I guess we knew what was a good Simple Plan song. I think we were always our best A&R. We were always the best people to know, like, this our fans will love. This represents the band, and we had that feeling immediately with that song.
Welcome to My Life would go to number 2 in Canada and become a top 40 hit in the U.S. Still Not Getting Any would go 4 times platinum in Canada and would not only follow in No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls footsteps by going platinum in America, but it would buoy the band's debut to a 2nd platinum status during its album cycle. I have a feeling a lot of kids were rocking up to their local record store and clearing out the Simple Plan section in one fell swoop. Hey, don't forget your Scooby-Doo soundtrack. The role that Welcome to My Life played in their success was not lost on Comeau, who explained to me how much of a game changer the album and its iconic lead single was.
It was a game changer, that song, for us. That record, that second album was huge because the first record did really, really well in Canada, US, Australia, Japan. But there was a lot of parts in the world where it did good, but it didn't bring us to like where we wanted to go. And this one was really the beginning of our, we went to Southeast Asia for the first time. We went to, and really blew up there. South America and Brazil and Mexico really exploded there. Europe, we had France and lots of really big success in Europe with that record. So it really opened up the doors globally for the band. It really was the beginning of this sort of worldwide success for the band. And that's when we really leaned into the idea of wanting to be a band that would go everywhere. International band that would play in as many countries as possible. It was really cool. We went to Brazil for the first time as well, and we were just shocked by how big the band was there. I mean, we never expected it, and the shows were massive. The people waiting at airports, running after you, waiting at hotels. It felt like a bit of Beatlemania, It was really, really cool to experience that.
Simple Plan would go on to release Shut Up and the aforementioned Untitled, How Could This Happen to Me, as the 2nd and 3rd singles off of the record, and would finish the album cycle in early 2006. After the success of Still Not Getting Any, Simple Plan chose to think outside the box again for their follow-up 2008 self-titled album. Originally, the band had planned on hooking up with Bob Rock again, but when he became unavailable, the guys took a risk by working with a trio of unlikely producers, assumedly sparing absolutely no expense. Evanescence producer Dave Fortman took the lead on production for the album. Fortman was responsible for producing Evanescence's biggest hit, Bring Me to Life, the story of which is, of course, in the archives. R&B and pop producer Danja was also called in for production on a number of tracks. Danja had been riding a huge wave of success as Timbaland's right-hand man, producing Justin Timberlake's Future Sex Love Sounds, as well as multiple songs on Britney Spears' underrated Fever Dream album Blackout, including the excellent and bizarre sleeper hit Give Me More. Finally, serving mostly as an engineer, but with production work scattered throughout the record, living legend Max Martin was brought in to help evolve the band's sound and possibly chase an elusive #1 hit. I'm just saying. While Martin's focus track for the band, Generation, didn't end up being a hit, it was certainly a big swing working with the man responsible for some of the most iconic pop songs of all time, including, of course, this season's first episode subject, Backstreet Boys' I Want It That Way, as well as #1s by everyone from NSYNC to Pink to Katy Perry to Britney Spears and beyond. The album's lead single, When I'm Gone, was a hit here in Canada, winning an MMVA for People's Choice, Favorite Canadian Group, and believe it or not, was also a #1 English radio hit in Mexico. A synthier, slicker-sounding Simple Plan still had a banger or two in them, but the 2008 self-titled ultimately didn't connect with audiences at the level of their initial releases. 2011's Get Your Heart On further experimented with the Simple Plan sound, the poppier record featuring guest spots from Natasha Bedingfield, Kanon, Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, and even Sean Paul. It was actually quite well received critically, too, with Kerrang noting, "It may not be rocket science, but there is an art to doing this right, and Simple Plan have once again pulled it off." Now a few more albums in and proudly independent to Comeau, it's still all about connecting with fans of any era of the band and raising the profile of what pop punk meant and continues to mean to so many people.
So there's a lot, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people dismiss sometimes, you know, bands like us or anyone like pop punk, oh yeah, it's not really serious music and it's not like, and you know, I can understand the criticism and I understand it, but from what I see in the real world, it really does affect people and it really helps a lot of people. So I think that, it's been overall for us, it's been so positive to see that. And it feels cool to be a part of this community, like you were saying, that people find each other, they help each other out, they have things in common, they have this band and these songs and this scene in general, pop punk or emo or whatever you want to call it. It feels like home for a lot of people.
It's hard not to see Welcome to My Life as the standard bearer for that sentiment of feeling like home to fans across multiple generations, especially considering some 20 years later, Welcome to My Life, originally only a gold-selling single back in 2005, rose to double platinum certified status at the end of 2024 thanks to the power of streams and social media. This success comes 5 years after a similar phenomenon happened when the band's very first hit, I'm Just a Kid, became a massively viral challenge on TikTok. While we were all trapped away in our little COVID bubbles learning how to make sourdough, a whole new generation of kids were reinvigorating the song with cute time warp videos recreating childhood photos on the app in present day with I'm Just a Kid nostalgically soundtracking the flashback moments. And just like the first time around, it appears that I'm Just a Kid burst open the door for Welcome to My Life with well over 300 million streams and 177 million music video views on YouTube to date. Speaking of the video, the death-defying video filmed on the Henry Ford Bridge in Long Beach, California, actually featured a harnessed-in Pierre Bouvier shot by helicopters with cameras with very little Hollywood magic to speak of.
He wasn't very happy when he read the treatment of the video. He's like, are you serious? I gotta do this. And he had a little harness and not even just a rope, but he was really sitting on the edge of that bridge.
You can check out my full uncut interview with the lovely Chuck Comeau next week on the podcast, including more stories from the video shoot and what Canadian cities they'd originally pitched the video to take place in. You'll be thankful for the reasons they didn't do it in Canada. Chuck and I also discussed how excited he is to reunite with longtime pal Avril Lavigne at this weekend's All Your Friends Festival in Burroughs Creek, reminisced about their long-standing history of hitting the road together, and he even told me just an extremely wholesome story about a recent text message he got from mentor and friend Mark Hoppus. It's going to make you say, "Aww." But for now, I'm going to lock myself in my room with the radio turned up so loud that no one hears me screaming. That was the story of Simple Plan's Welcome to My Life. I'm Ruby Carr. Thank you for listening to Encore. New episodes every Thursday.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Download the free iHeartRadio app and subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.